What's going on, sports fans? It's Wes Pruitt. We are sitting down at the Sports Buffet for a special Sunday edition where we break down college football week 3 and what a wild week it was for many programs. We're going to talk some hot topics. We'll talk a little hot seat. Then we'll get into games that stood out to each of us as I'm welcomed by Blake Hogue from the Hogs Happy Hour and Jonathan Sturdivant from Inside the Line. We'll each give 2 games that stood out to us. We'll break them down. We'll talk about them, and then we'll get into week 4 as we look at a game that stands out. All that and more. We talk about the experience in Tallahassee for one Jonathan Sturdivant and much more tonight as we recap week 3 right here on the Sports Buffet on 4-Star Sports Media. What's going on, folks? Wes Pruitt, Blake Hogue, John Sturdivant. We're all in the house tonight. We appreciate you guys tuning in for a special YouTube and Twitter exclusive little recap of week 3 as we're broadcasting live right now on our 4-Star Sports Media YouTube and Twitter page, as well as the Hogs Happy Hour page, as Blake's got that thing running over there. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. What a wild weekend of college football it was yesterday. And we here are going to break it all down. So, man, I've got sheets of paper everywhere right here on this desk. I love it, man. I love it. Went old school and wrote it down. Fellas, how are you doing? John, we'll start with you, man. You got to be a little tired, buddy. You probably got home a little bit late, didn't you?
Yeah, I got home roughly around 1 o'clock this morning. Didn't go to bed till like 3:30, 4 o'clock. And then I praised the Lord that Memphis won that game. And I worshiped the Lord and went to church at like 9:30 this morning. So
Heck
great
yeah, that's a good
weekend.
Sunday right
Yeah.
there. That's a good Sunday right there. Blake, what about you, man?
Oh, it was a great weekend of college football. Starting out at 11 o'clock with Memphis and Florida State. It was a great game, so I know y'all are happy with that outcome. And then the Hogs played, and I got sad again. So, and then but hey, any day watching college football is a great day.
100%, man. 100%. By the way, if you like watching college football and you want to watch it live in person, we have a great way to do that. Head over to SeatGeek right now. When you head over to SeatGeek, we have a promo code, 4-Star Sports Media. It will take $20 off your first ticket purchase of $50 or more. And, I mean, John will tell you, there were Florida State tickets for $20 just yesterday at that game down in Tallahassee. You could have paid $20 on – well, you could have found you a seat $50. You could have found you a primo seat in the stadium and knocked $20 off that purchase. But head over to SeatGeek now. They are the official seat supplier of us here at 4-Star Sports Media, and we want it to be you as well. All right, man, let's go ahead and get into it. A little college football national talk, and we'll start with hot seat alert. It's a hot topic, no pun intended. John, I will start with you, man. Obviously, we all know the main ones, right, John?
Yeah, other than the main ones like Billy Napier, some people are saying really Mike Norvell could be on the hot seat, but of course the buyout is another story for another day for that one. But I didn't have any last week regarding the hot seat, but he's been at Florida International this is his 3rd year. Mike McIntyre very well could be on the hot seat because I know they played Florida Atlantic, I believe, yesterday, but he's not getting the job done as a Conference USA school that can compete with the Western Kentuckys and all them as of late. But Mike McIntyre is probably one of them just because I really thought maybe, and what is this, the 3rd year? Every coach that you give 3 years to, you would probably see improvement. And I know they have played a little bit of a tougher non-conference schedule than people anticipated, whatnot to start the year, but the offense is still not clicking. And, Mike McIntyre is a defensive guy. And we've seen defensive coaches probably fail as head coaches before. So I'll do Mike McIntyre as my hot seat right now.
Interesting. I like that though. I like that, John. Go ahead, Blake.
I think every coach in the SEC, it seems like, if you go on the message boards, is on the hot seat. You got Sunbelt Billy down there at Florida. He's especially on the hot seat. Rumors are that, yep, that the board of trustees at Florida might be meeting about something. We don't know what it's about, but I'm sure there's some rich boosters who might try to get some money together. Norvell, as much as the fans want him on the hot seat, he's not going to be. It's just way too much of a buyout. In Kentucky, Coach Stoops, he's on the hot seat, even though they did well this weekend against Georgia. He just you cannot punt that ball in that situation. Okay, you've got to go for it on fourth down because you punted it and you never got it back. He's on the hot seat. I mean, it's just Beamer. Some folks want Beamer gone down at South Carolina. I mean, if you go on the SEC message boards, every team outside of Georgia and Alabama and obviously Tennessee, kind of are not particularly happy right now. So.
I got a quick question regarding that Georgia Kentucky game, which I haven't really got in detail regarding that.
Yeah.
But can you explain what happened with that punt? Was it like 3 minutes to go in the game or something, and the ball was like at Georgia's 37 or something, or what actually happened?
Yeah, it was about, I want to say it's about the 40 or so
Okay.
of Kentucky. There's like 3.5 minutes left probably. And now Kentucky had 3 timeouts, and Kentucky's defense has done well the entire game. And they just punted it back, and Georgia got those first downs. And now Kentucky had a chance at the end, but not much, not much time left.
Gotcha.
When you look at the hot seat right now, I mean, to y'all's point, I mean, there's a lot of people in Tallahassee that want Mike Norvell on it. But as bad as they want him on that bad boy, there's $65 million that's probably holding that up just a little bit. Sorry, 65 million or 85% of his annual salary, which is $10 million a year for 8 years.
Must
That's
be nice.
that's an insane contract. I mean, but that is what happens when rumors are amuck, message boards, to your point, Blake, message boards. Do we know if Mike Norvell was really interested in Alabama? Do we really truly know?
Yeah.
But what I do know is off of those rumors, Mike Norvell got the contract that I just spoke of. Is that a smart move by his agent, or is that a smart move by Florida State? But we'll talk about Florida State here momentarily. I mean, I think when you look around the nation, I mean, hey, right here in Fayetteville, Arkansas, there's a lot of folks that had funerals yesterday. Funerals after a win. I just don't know what's going on. I don't know. I just don't understand. You won the game. Now, was it pretty? No. It was, as the guy from Alabama says, a struggle win. But it's a dub. You're 2-1, and the only game you've lost is to Oklahoma State, who's a top 25 football team. So, doesn't make any sense to me why Sam Pittman would be really on the hot seat. Arkansas is 2-1. You win 4 more games on the season, and guess what? He's bowling Larry again. So it's not, it's not the end of the world here in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And it's not the other thing. It's not the end of the world all the way across college football. There's overreactions every single week to every single play, every single moment. This is where I talked about a couple weeks ago. Let's just sit back and enjoy the product. Let's sit back and enjoy the games. Because really, when you get down to it, and we're getting ready to get into it now, there was incredible games all around the country yesterday. So let's go ahead and get into it, fellas. We each have 2 games that stood out to us. John, we're gonna start with you, man. Old Sturd yesterday. I hadn't called that man Sturd in probably 20 years, but Old Sturd yesterday entered enemy territory as he was in Tallahassee for the Memphis game. First off, John, I'll say it on air. I don't care. I'm a little bit jealous. I mean, obviously, I know it's okay. I mean, I was living vicariously through a lot of people that were there, so it worked. But John, let me start with this question, man.
Yeah.
Going into a quote unquote enemy territory, right? You're on the road. I love road games. I love going to other people's campuses. I love
Hmm.
visiting with other fans, getting their traditions, getting what they do every single time their team plays. What was your experience of not only the campus, but the fans of Florida State and the overall experience?
Well, let me just first of all say I didn't get there officially until like 9:15, and it was kind of crazy by looking at the radar a little bit beforehand. They said about 20% showers, of course, throughout the Florida Panhandle. And then, of course, around 9:30, where I'm at, the bottom fell out. So you really didn't get to experience the game day pretty much no walk or anything like that because maybe the buses got parked, closer to the stadium where people, can get off the bus and not get rained on or whatever. But 9:30, the rain probably picked up around 9:30 or so, and then it probably, to be honest with you, it did not stop until at least 10:15 at the latest. The 10 o'clock was still a little bit of a downpour, but it wasn't as heavy around 9:30 like it was. So around 10 o'clock, I really didn't. I was like, you know what? You never really know what's going to happen. Plus, I'm already soaked as it is because one, my other change of clothes are in the car. Two, you
Attaboy.
don't know like if I should bring a hoodie or anything like that. But again, I just went inside the stadium to be honest with you around 10 o'clock because one, I wanted to try to dry off as much as I can by walking around inside the stadium for one thing.
Yeah.
Two, those hair, I call it the hair dryers of t-shirts where you can dry your t-shirts. They don't even have those; they got paper towels. So I was
Yeah.
out of luck there.
Yeah.
But walking around the stadium, inside the stadium, on it, like I didn't get to see the Bowden statue, like a lot of people saw. I didn't get to see the horse with
Yeah.
the
Spear. Yeah.
in front of that stadium. But I didn't realize how old this stadium was, guys. To be honest with you, it's like a 1940 edition stadium. But just walking around the concourse area where they got different types of concessions, where they have a chicken salad chick inside the stadium,
Yeah. I
which
love
is
that
pretty,
place.
which is pretty cool. The concessions they had like different types of nachos, like ground beef nachos, which is pretty cool.
Mm.
Um, different types of, of course, just different types. But the people that I got to talk to during before the game and whatnot, they're like you said, Wes, Norvell's got the biggest buyout in college football history, it seems.
It's nuts.
And they are happy with them, don't get me wrong, but this is the third time in Florida State's history where they started 0-3. Um, Now, first year, Coach Bowden was 0-3. Second year for Norvell, 0-3, and then of course, last night, Norvell's 0-3. But they're just not happy with the quarterback play at all in Florida State. And they knew that coming into this season, how basically these people were basically shocked that DJ came to Florida State, but it was probably for more NIL than anything, to be honest with you. And I think that's one reason that he chose Florida State. But they do have a great point. They do, like me and Mr. Silversmith Jordan brought up over the last couple weeks. They want to change at quarterback, but they don't know when it's going to happen because Norvell still has that trust in DJ. But yeah, overall game atmosphere out of a 10, I probably rate like an 8.5, almost a 9, because I just really didn't get to experience the whole thing. But I'd love to do it maybe down the road because the future scheduling for a lot of teams usually come out around this time as well, making announcements per se. Like Georgia and Alabama have a home and home in Florida State. So if we can at least save some money and not be a media person for that game, I'd love to experience those two fan bases going down to Tallahassee for that type of ball game. But overall, I mean, y'all get the videos and photos I got. Blake can probably show them here in a little bit, or you can, Wes. But just looking at how the Memphis fan base traveled for one thing, going down there, 2,500 people. They said all of our tickets got sold for that. But I don't know if it's a tradition also, but Florida State's band before the game played the opposing team's fight song.
Yep.
So that was pretty cool to see. And then also, the horse driving around the stadium for or riding around the stadium for 30 minutes before game. And then just planting that fire at midfield. I thought that was pretty cool too. But overall game day atmosphere, I wasn't really around that many Florida State fans. But a lot of people forgot that Florida State's doing renovations for one thing too.
Yeah.
So they're like, 58,000 for Memphis when it was sold out. How's that possible? Well, the photos and videos show justice because the second level on the west side of the stadium is under renovations.
Mm-hmm.
So
Blake,
that's
go
why,
ahead
yeah,
and click one of
Yeah.
those photos, Blake, just to kind of show
Yeah,
the
here's
fans.
here's the pregame. So that's what he's talking about.
for the fight time. So
Yeah.
basically, the whole second level, is part of under renovations. So a lot of people don't realize that how much seats that is actually taking out in the college football stadium. But also, I have a friend of mine, Adam Amar on the show, former Memphis baseball player. He
Yeah.
sat in the third level where all the big, boosters and all them sit with the club level per se. But I never thought, you would have a club level on a third level before in a college football stadium that big. Because I thought it'd be like, like maybe like A&M style would be on like between the first level and
Yeah.
the second level. But overall, I'll count it as like an 8.5 out of 10 or so that I get to experience.
Okay. Blake, hit the other video
Yeah.
there, or the image.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Or whatever we got.
My bad. There we go. Kind of how.
Of course, that's from Memphis's Twitter, but that's a cool photo. I mean, that's a happy football coach that knows he just got a massive win on the road.
And also with him going to that, our fans right after that. I mean, the players usually go to the fans right after a win anyway and go to the band anyway. But just to, like you said, a lot of people in general, just to show Ryan Silverfield's heart for one thing, and he wanted to win this ball game regardless of the outcome, because it's not personal or anything, because him and Norvell are still friends. But to win this game in a hostile environment, in a game that so many players have never really seen before. By players like Chandler Martin, for example, he's a kid that came in from Charlotte.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charlotte might have played some teams non-conference or whatever, but he never got to really experience a Florida State,
No, he
environment.
came from East Tennessee State.
Oh, sorry, my fault. I
Yeah,
apologize.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, you're good.
but still,
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, and we're getting ready to get into the game here in just a second. Blake, hit the other. Where's the other video?
At the end of the game.
Yeah. What's the other one?
I think the other one y'all got is the when the band just did the tomahawk.
Yeah. Okay. Play that because I want to ask about this war chant.
Okay.
Okay. I'll see.
Credit Mike Brewer.
By the way,
video.
yeah,
By the way,
just about to say, man, give full credit there to Mike and Jake Brewer. Jake works for the university, works with the football program and others around the campus. John, one last question, and then we're going to get into the game.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to experience the war chant from a Florida State perspective, right?
Yeah.
Like their fans doing it. You talked about it not being full capacity.
Mm-hmm.
What was the war chant like at that capacity? And then did you think in your head like how loud it would be at full capacity?
Yes, on the second part question, because if it was at 80,000 people, it would have been a whole lot louder. And to be honest with you, with it being a night game rather than an early kickoff, and not that many people recovering from their hangovers, and whatnot, I think it would have been a lot. Hey guys, I'm just being honest here.
I know.
Yeah, but with it being an early kickoff, of course, a lot of people like to start drinking early, and then they fall asleep during games and whatnot. But yeah, the experience, if it was like that at night game and then more capacity wise, 80,000 people, it would have been a lot louder. But you said that they experienced that in person, right?
Yeah.
That's the first part. Okay. Yeah, they experienced that first in person rather than hearing it on a video game per se growing up. I liked it, to be honest with you. I have no problem with it whatsoever. A lot of people are saying, well, you're not respecting the Indian tribals, and all that craziness. Stop. There's nothing wrong with that chant at all. Kansas City Chiefs people even do it these days, for crying out loud. But yeah, no problem with it at all. To be honest with you, I thought it would have been a little bit louder during the game because the band plays it every single down before somebody hikes the ball. But dude, it was quiet. Like the chant, like people around us
I mean, we're getting
were
ready to get into why it was quiet, John.
quiet, of course. But it wasn't even like people on the other side of the stadium. Like I couldn't even hear them at all. To be honest with you, probably doing the chant.
Wow. Well, Memphis made a big road trip, man. Went down there and got a big win, 20-12 over the Seminoles. When you look at it, Memphis from a defensive standpoint, they started the game hot and heavy, and Darius Coffey on the second play of the game came in with a massive hit on the running back, popped the ball out, pop goes the weasel, and Chandler Martin
Love it.
would fall on it. But when you look at the Memphis from a defensive perspective in this game, they've now held in the first quarter, they've now held opponents scoreless dating back to the Liberty Bowl against Iowa State.
Wow.
Blake, what was your thoughts on this defense from the Tigers?
Well, I was happy at the end of the game. Usually, people will rush 3 and drop 8, but Memphis didn't. Memphis went after him and caused him to get off schedule. To those passes, were off target. So, I was proud. I was happy to see that. And then, like you said, the second play of the game, I was getting breakfast together. Had to, I could hear the TV, and it's like, phone. I was like, oh like I was like, Memphis came to play. But yeah, I mean, what a heck of a defensive effort. He will probably get some big time offers here soon. I know Memphis fans don't want to hear that, but I think he's going to work his way up his coaching career.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at timeline for the last 3 coaches, this is starting to add up to that 5-year, 4-year, 5-year mark. And of course, he's not going to say anything. Nobody does. I mean, speaking of saying things, Mike Norvell made a comment in Memphis before he left. He made the quote, and this is a direct quote. A lot of coaches like to jump at other opportunities, but the grass is not always greener. Now, obviously, that video was posted by numerous people across the Memphis fan base. But I want to say this, and then we'll jump. We'll get John's thoughts too. But as we wrap up this portion of the game, but you can't love Mike Norvell the entire time, and in some instances, call him the greatest football coach in Memphis history. And then when he loses to Memphis, turn around and trash the guy. It's really not how it works. I mean, and I say you can't do that. There's people that's doing it everywhere, but it doesn't make any sense. I mean, when you look at it from a statistical standpoint, which is what we like to look at things here at 4-Star, Ryan Silverfield is just as successful, if not more successful, than Mike Norvell was at Memphis. Let's also not forget this. Look at the keys Mike Norvell was handed by Justin Fuente when Justin Fuente left the program. Let's not sit here and act like Norvell was Fuente. Let's not differentiate the two. Fuente got the program back to the national level after Larry Porter Amber Hearded the program completely. Mike Norvell took the keys to that, quick little sports car, and then went on and bought a different vehicle and was rolling really hot and heavy when Silverfield took over. Oh, and by the way, then there was a thing called COVID. So these fans that like to just brag about, the greatest football season in Memphis history, he's the greatest coach in Memphis history. Let's not. I mean, and a lot of these people may not even remember who Justin Fuente is because they just started watching the team in 2015. Speaking of the Memphis football program, John, did you know this is the first win over a preseason top 10 team since 1996 when Memphis knocked off Tennessee?
Yeah, I did. I found that out yesterday, and I also found out I forgot how many years it's been since Memphis actually knocked off like a non-power 5 in like 20 years. I think that was like Ole Miss, whatever.
It's the
back in
last time Memphis won
yeah.
a road game against a power
That's what I
conference
meant. Yeah, I
opponent
apologize.
since 2015 at
Yeah.
Kansas. And by the way, do you remember who the coach was then? Because I don't think it was. Who was it, John? Who was it in
What year was it?
2015?
Justin Fuente.
You're exactly right. It was Justin Fuente. So it's funny that everybody wants
I
to
love
talk
that
about
game.
how great these coaches, the coach in between, the coach that's sitting on the hot seat right now, that if you watch his post-game press conference, Mike Norvell is a deer in headlights right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is not animosity coming from a Memphis fan. This is facts. He's a deer in headlights right now. When you listen to him talk, I've never seen a Mike Norvell team coach like this. They're undisciplined, majorly undisciplined. But then you look at Norvell on the sidelines, and I don't see the fire. I don't see him going and jumping in players' faces like I saw in Memphis. I don't see him working officials throughout the game. Now, obviously, I'm not there. I'm not watching him on the sidelines. I'm seeing what ESPN decides to show me. But this whole narrative about, oh, Silverfield, guess what? Let me ask you this, John. I know you know the answer. How many bowl games has Mike Norvell won as a head coach?
0.
One.
Oh, one.
One. And it was at Florida State.
Yeah.
So, you know what? Thank
Unless
you for
they say the same Memphis 0, but yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah, none at Memphis, none. And the biggest one in program history, he wasn't there. So all this narrative about Mike Norvell and how just incredible he was at Memphis. Yes, look at his overall record. It's great. It's incredible. You're right. I think Ryan Silverfield is a better football coach than Mike Norvell.
Mm.
And I think when you look at that game yesterday, Ryan Silverfield proved that. He outcoached him from the start of the game to the very end. He and his staff. Let me give full credit to everyone involved. Tim Cramsey, Jordan Hankins, everybody. That was a full staff ass kicking in Tallahassee. I'll call it like it is. That's not I'm not being a homer. That's a fact. Anybody that watched that game will tell you that.
I mean, you brought up a good point. Coaching staff did a great job, but I want to say this. ESPN announcer did a heck of a job, first of all, yesterday regarding the game. It got to the point where the ESPN people, on the bits and pieces I got to rewatch this morning at 3 o'clock this morning or whatever, they knew what was coming from Florida State on the defensive line and then on the offense as well. It seemed like it was so predictable what was going to happen because like people were saying, well, Silverfield was like so creative, like not creative enough, whatnot. But to me, I think he was playing it safe card, as well. Because think about it, when Florida State did not go for 2, which I'm gonna give you all those quotes here in a minute, but since he did not go for 2 in that position, think about it. If Memphis throws a pick or whatever, and Florida State marches down the field like they did that one big play that Florida State can do and can beat you, 60 yards or whatever they did on that one drive. If they do like another deep ball and then Florida State scores a touchdown, that's a 3-point score game for crying out loud.
Yep.
I'm not saying, I'm sure all heartily the coaching staff trusts Seth and the receiving core and whatnot. But we talked about this, Blake. We talked about this, Wes, last week with different people. That time of possession was so key for this game. In that second half, I think that's one reason Silverfield really didn't open up the playbook as much because he wanted to control the clock and get Florida State's offense off. Because think about it, Norvell could do a hurry-up offense at any time like he did at Memphis.
Yeah.
And I think Silverfield playing that game perfectly for that second half.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might have not opened the playbook up, but you're being patient on offense, running the football. Yeah, 2 yards on offense is 2 yards, but it's positive yards and the clock is still running. What happens if you drop a pass? It's incomplete per se, and the clock stops.
Yep.
I love that time management by Silverfield and the rest of the coaching staff, even Cramsey as well. And I thought the play calling from everybody in general, even the special teams, to be honest with you, did a heck of a job. But I don't know, that 4th and 3 play call, I like that play call in general. But let's just say if Memphis did not get that, like we talked about, that's short field for Florida State. All they got to do is 60 yards downfield, and then they're right back at it.
Yeah, yeah,
But
and I mean,
Silverfield wanted to win that game, and it showed on that 4th and 3. And I loved the play call, but that kind of was like, and then that 56-yard field goal. I like that guts too, because if he makes it, the game's over,
yeah,
basically.
yeah,
So
hundred
yeah,
percent, 100%. And to your point, as we close up on Florida State and get to the next game, Memphis had a time of possession of 36 minutes 21 seconds compared to Florida State 22 minutes 39 seconds, and that third quarter. You saw Florida State only have the ball for I think 2 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. Let's go ahead and jump to the next game.
let me just real quick.
Um,
Let me just comment real quick regarding going for 2 guys, real quick. When you're
okay,
in that situation, we're playing to go win the game. When you're down 11, it's a touchdown, field goal, and extra point to go win the game. I felt good about the call that we had. Obviously, it did not play out the way I would do it again. I'm
yeah,
sorry, but I'm going for the extra point. You're down by 10 or whatever it is right after that and see what happens. But also, Wes, 2 of 12 for third down for Florida State. But does anybody know on top of their head what was the average yard per third down for Florida State?
I know it was way behind the chains. I want to say it was like
That's
9, 10 yards.
yeah.
What about you, Blake?
I'm say about 8,
9.5. Good
7.
job, Wes.
Yeah,
9.5.
yeah.
Because here you go 23 yards, 4 yards, 11, 11, 11, 1, 10, 6, 4, 4, 19, and then 10. It's basically all because the bar, or not the bar, Memphis defensive line putting pressure and the linebackers putting pressure on DJU and getting those sacks. And
Yep.
credit everybody on that great win.
100%. 100%. All right, man. Up next, we look at the Rockets as Toledo went in and launched on Starkville. 40.
Yeah.
Here's the score, folks: 41-17. That's a big time win for Toledo. Now their second ever win over an SEC program. Uh,
Yeah.
Jeff Lebby and the Bulldogs. It doesn't get any easier. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Blake, quickly, what's your thoughts on this game?
I was, when at the beginning of the season, Mississippi State, we knew they were going to struggle. We thought the offense would put up some numbers, but just wouldn't amount to too many wins or whatnot. But the offense, I mean, everything just struggled yesterday. At home, at night, cowbells ringing. I mean, Toledo had everything against them, and they were the better team, the more mature team, you know more better coached up team. It was disappointing to see. Now, as an Arkansas fan, we know how tough Toledo can be because they gave us a few tough games a couple years ago. But yeah, it was. But 41-17. Like, I know Mississippi State's bad, but they're not that bad. Okay, I don't think they're 41-17 bad
No.
to lose to Toledo.
Well, I mean, who was expecting 17 points from
No,
this offense against Toledo?
yeah, I
Not
mean
me.
it's yeah.
Sturt, what about you,
Yeah.
man?
I'm not watching. I'm looking at the stats right now as we speak. But yeah, Blake, you brought up a good point. Rushing the football, 66 yards for Mississippi State, and pretty much all of it came in the second half. It seemed like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Toledo had 169 rushing yards, 7 of 13 on third downs. We talked about this numerous times again. Toledo 5 sacks compared to Mississippi State 0. When was the last time you saw an SEC defensive line and linebacker crew have 0 sacks?
It's been a
So
while.
yeah,
It's been a while.
10 penalties though also for State guys. And that's way too many for a total of 104 yards.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, that's my two games. We're gonna get to Blake now. Blake,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, going to the SEC. Okay, we got Florida and Texas A&M. Texas A&M goes in and beats Florida at the Swamp 33-20, but the game was not that close.
Mm-mm.
Right before halftime, Texas A&M scored, and you could hear it loud and clear on TV. Fire Billy! Like, Florida fans are not happy right now. And especially with the they don't know who their quarterback is right now. But I mean, both of them are not. They're not spectacular. Texas A&M though, I think they found their quarterback, and Marcel Reed. He looked better than Connor, but it's only one game, so we'll see how the next few games turn out. But Florida, you just can't. I mean, Florida has probably the hardest schedule in the SEC, but playing games like this with no effort, no enthusiasm, you're in front of your home crowd. It's not good for Sunbelt Billy right now.
No, it's not. I love that Sunbelt Billy name. Man, the first thing that stands out to me is rushing yards in this game. When you look at 52 yards for Florida, and then they gave up 310. That's an average for A&M average 5.6 yards a rush. They had 18 rushing first downs in this game alone on the ground. 18. That's wild. Um, Out of their 72 plays, by the way, that Texas A&M ran, 55 of them were rushes. 17 were passes. But hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think that's Mike Elko's philosophy right now. And then y'all know where I go. Time of possession, third down, right? Look at time of possession. A&M 37 minutes 46 seconds compared to 22 minutes 14 seconds for Florida. And then third downs, 5 of 13 for A&M, 2 of 9 for the Gators. John, when you look at Florida, man, they got swamped in their own stadium. What's your thoughts on this Florida team? We talked to Ben Chase preseason, man, and I'll be honest with you, Ben changed my whole perspective on this team. But now that I'm watching them so far, I kind of want to go back to my original thoughts, John.
I agree with you 100% on that because Ben Chase had them winning like 8 or 9 games this year. I think you were probably kind of that bandwagon too. But dude, that schedule for Florida is so brutal. I'm just kidding, Wes. But no, in all seriousness, early on in the year, I had Florida going 4-8 for a reason. Um, we talked about this. Dude, their offense, it's not the same offense from the Louisiana days for Billy Napier. And like Blake just brought up, turnovers with the quarterback play, 3 interceptions in general. And to be honest with you, I don't know what to think about this. I think the question is now, if you do pull the plug on Billy Napier, what's to say when is it going to happen? Because next week is no joke. Starkville, early kickoff for one thing. I know it's not a night game, but it's hard for your bodies for one thing when you're traveling from the Eastern time zone to the Central time zone. Yeah, you gain that extra hour, but to get up on an early start in Starkville is not no easy test either. Then you got your bye week. Do you let Billy Napier go right after the Mississippi State game, maybe? Right before UCF? Because think about it. Yeah, UCF, where I think Gus Malzahn, I know KJ Jefferson's the quarterback at UCF. People still want to bash him and whatnot. But he knows the Florida system pretty well because he played at Arkansas. And then you play at Tennessee, where right now Tennessee can probably score 70 on you in the first half. And then
I'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, and then you got Kentucky, at Georgia, at Texas, home for LSU, home for Ole Miss, and then at Florida State. But the real question is, when are you going to fire good old Billy Napier if you do? Do you let him go right before Tennessee? Or because we know Billy can win a game that's not expected on that schedule like he did last year against Tennessee, but when is it going to happen?
Yeah, that's the question, and we're on the SEC media call every week, and I've listened to Billy Napier every week. There's not a lot of. He's like, we just gotta, get it fixed. There's just not. He's very lethargic. He's very lethargic in how he answers questions. He can't open a water bottle. I mean, it's just, I don't get it, man. I feel like when he first took the job, there was a lot of fire in his belly. There was a lot of passion behind it. And slowly, Gainesville, Florida has just taken it all out of him. And when you look at Gainesville, Florida, it can happen. Now, I saw somebody say the other day that Lane Kiffin was the modern-day Steve Spurrier, and they wanted Kiffin down there. We'll talk about that later. That's a whole nother show.
Yeah. But here's the thing about Florida. They're still paying Mullen.
Yeah.
So now you potentially going to be playing 2 head coaches that don't coach for you.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
100%.
mean, it's yeah.
I mean,
100%.
I look at it like this also, and a lot of people are doing this also. They're saying the athletic department might be in trouble also right now because a lot of people are not happy with Scott Strickland as an athletic director down there right now as well. So think about that from
Yeah.
a point of view.
Yeah.
They could very well see a head coach and an AD maybe get canned in the next couple weeks because they're not happy with Scott Strickland down there either. And another point, Wes, 0 sacks again for the Florida Gators. So that's another unheard of with the defensive line that Florida has.
Yeah, very true, man.
Yeah.
Very true. All right, let's go on to LSU as they eked one out in Columbia. Man, they almost got slapped around by the Cox over there, but they didn't let it happen. They decided to eke it out. And speaking of a coach that butt was a little warm, I think Brian Kelly was a little bit warm. But I don't think
Yeah.
it's as warm now. What about you, Blake?
I think it's still warm. I mean, anybody that watched that game understands South Carolina was the better team. You know. Now I know Sellers went out at halftime with his ankle injury, but South Carolina was up 17-0. Okay, and LSU kind of crawled back in there, but there's a few questionable penalties on some interceptions for the Gamecocks. The atmosphere was amazing. You know, game day was there. It was rocking. You know, McAfee was having a great time feeding
Can't
Saban
wait to
some
talk about
tomahawk
that.
steak, and I mean
Yes.
it was a great atmosphere. You know, I don't like Shane Beamer, but I kind of feel bad for him with the way the game unfolded. You know, because it was, as a football coach, that's what you want. You know, you're the highlight of the morning. You know, you get all this extra fanfare. You know, all eyes are on you, and then you go up 17-0 on ranked LSU. You know, but then Sellers gets hurt, and good old Ashford had to come in. You know, he used to be at Auburn, so I mean he has experience, but not. You know, there's a reason he's transferred a couple times. So yeah, Beamer's had a roller coaster to start the year. The first game against old Dominion, it was very it had to sneak out a win, and then you go to Kentucky. You know, you beat them, and then game day comes to town, and then you lose like this to LSU. So it's just I don't know. It was as a fan of Arkansas, didn't really have a dog in the fight. It was a great SEC game. Back, the second half was back and forth. It was a great game. But yeah, Brian Kelly's seat's still hot though. People are not happy.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I can see that. Um, I can definitely see that. John, when you look at this LSU team,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, like Blake just said, he pretty well broke it down. They snuck away with one here. You've got a UCLA team that's about as helter skelter as it comes. But they're coming down to Death Valley,
Yeah.
and we're going to talk about it coming up. But I mean, when you look at LSU in the road forward, it's there's some speed bumps in there.
To be honest with you, I think they can handle UCLA pretty well, just the way that Indiana dominated over UCLA yesterday in LA. And I think you're traveling cross country with it being a 2:30 kickoff. I really think LSU can probably win by like 20 in this game if their defense definitely does show up like they're talking about. But again, yeah, like you brought up, first of all, I would say 22 penalties in this game combined, 13 for South Carolina and 9 for LSU. Wow. Yeah, LSU's got UCLA coming up at or versus South Alabama the week after. Major Applewhite, you really never know with the South Alabama team. Hey, they did play one double A school, but they did score
Scored freaking
87
90
points
points.
on them the other night. But yeah, the true test, I think, if they can, LSU can go somehow 2-1 in this stretch right here. Ole Miss at Arkansas, then at A&M. I think but I think that's how I think it could be. Regarding that.
Yeah, very true, man. All right, let's jump over to John's two games. The
Hang on,
Gus bust.
we have a comment out there, guys.
We do.
Yeah.
Florida State has to regret not giving Cam Ward the money he wanted. LSU, Miami is looking great. To your point, we're getting ready to talk about another team in Florida that's really playing well right now. in Central Florida as the Gus Bus survived. But Kenny, thank you for watching first and foremost, man. But man, to your point, Kenny, who would have thought that Miami and Central Florida would be the two best teams in the state of Florida this year? I didn't. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Kenny. But Kenny, thanks for watching. Blake, what's your thoughts on that comment?
Oh, I mean, I, I think Florida State, like I said, like Kenny said, Florida State, has to regret not giving Cam Moore that money because Cam is balling out for Miami right now.
Yes.
He's going to be one of those Heisman candidates, and and it just it's kind of like a pissing match with the Florida schools of who can give one player the most amount of money. Because all the Florida schools have money. So, but yeah, Cam Ward I think made the better decision with going to Miami, which he's probably offered a little bit more money at Miami than he was at Florida State.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, John, let's go ahead and get into yours, man.
Yeah.
Two big
Wow.
games. Two big games. Let's start with the Gus Bus, man. They went and got a dub, big time win over TCU 35-34 in an absolute incredible football game. If you haven't watched that game, folks, go back and find it. It'll probably be on ESPNU sometime this week. But an incredible matchup. And Gus survives. And I mean, I know Arkansas fans aren't going to like hearing this, but damn, KJ Jefferson's playing well for Gus Malzahn right now.
Yeah,
John,
I think he finished the game for 13 of 22 for 230. I know a lot of people are saying, well, let me ask you all this before I go further.
Mm-hmm.
What do y'all think about the future of Sonny Dykes as TCU? Because a lot of people are saying that, they're tired of the 6 or 7 wins at TCU. They want the old school of Gary Patterson, where they win like 9 or 10 games. So what do y'all think of the future of Sonny Dykes at TCU?
Well, I'll say this. I think
to be determined. I think it's to be determined. But
agreed, 100%, Blake. When you look at it, I mean, you look at those two coaches you just mentioned, John.
Mm-hmm.
Gary was a defensive-minded guy, right? Really hard-nosed defense. Would always bring in the innovative offensive coordinator, a la Justin Fuente, to run the open style offense while he focused on defense, making sure that defense could stop the opposing teams. When you look at TCU now, you've got Sonny Dykes, the opposite, right? He's more of an offensive minded guy. And let me just say this. I think Sonny Dykes is one of the best coaches in the country. Taking nothing away from him. He's an incredible football coach. I mean, watching him in person, talking to him down in Mobile as well, when he was with SMU. I mean, the guy's incredible to watch. Incredible mind. But to your point, John, I mean, I think he can win 7, 8, 9 games. I just think in the new style Big 12, you're going to need a little bit of help. Now, he didn't get that help yesterday when Gus is now 3-0.
Yeah, great points, guys. And 21-7, TCU was up in that game at one time of the game, and I'm like, okay, when's this UCF offense that I'm so used to with Gus Malzahn hiking the ball within 5 to 6 seconds finally going to wake up? KJ Jefferson had a good game, 13 of 22, 233 touchdowns, 0 picks, and a good environment down in Fort Worth. But the running game for UCF also, 29 carries for 180 for RJ Harvey, which I'm very impressed with RJ Harvey over the last couple of years. And I think he's ready for the NFL now, to be honest with you, regarding that. But I think that really concerned me was where TCU was only 58 rushing yards. They threw the ball 52 times for 402 passing yards. But credit to Gus Bus for just rallying his troops in a good environment, just escaping in that game 35-34. And both teams, guys, I said it all show, and I'm going to say it again. 0 sacks allowed for both teams as well. So, yeah, the Gus Bus survives 3-0. And who they got next? I forgot on top of my head. Hang on one second, guys. Sorry about that.
They got Colorado coming to town the week after.
Oh,
Yeah, so they are on a
Uh,
bye week now, so definitely that's a good rest bye week.
yep,
Now you get Colorado with Dion coming to town, and you don't know what time that game is, and I kind of hope it's a night game, so per se. And then you play at Florida, home for Cincinnati, at Iowa State. I can very well see if let's just say Cam Rogers out for like 4 to 5 more weeks.
mhm.
People better watch out for these UCF Knights because they could compete for these Big 12 championship this year as well.
100%, 100%. I completely
and
agree. Go ahead, Blake.
one more thing. What doesn't show up in the stats is UCF overcame 3 block kicks in this game.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's I
That's
mean they
massive.
had some adversity for sure.
Yeah, there's something about Gus Malzahn, man. You give that guy a little bit. It reminds me a lot of Matt Rule. Man, we've talked about Matt Rule a lot. You give him time and you let him run his system. He's a proven winner. I, I know people in Auburn won't agree with that, but he's a proven winner. All right, John. The dogs, man. Georgia
Mm.
survives a scare from the Cats as Kentucky was clawing away, and Georgia clawed away with a 13-12 old school knockdown drag out SEC football game. Man, that's another game, folks. If you haven't gone and watched that game,
Hmm.
and you love football, go watch that football game. That is a heck of a game. And two teams that did not. I mean, they left it all on the field. John, give me your thoughts on Georgia.
First of all, was Kentucky probably looking ahead of Georgia last week when they got killed by South Carolina? Probably because
Mm.
I know that's probably one reason that maybe they lost the way they did because you always look ahead to that matchup when you got a top ranked team going into Lexington and protecting the Kroger Field, they call it, down in Lexington. But I really thought maybe it's another situation, to be honest with you, because the little bit parts I did get to watch, did Kirby Smart play like his offense like is compatible to go? Like, per se, I know one of the tight ends for Georgia or receivers were on crutches on the sideline. So of course that's a big loss per se for the Georgia Bulldogs. But the score at half was what is it, 3-3 or 6-3? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
at
Barn burner,
halftime.
baby.
Yeah, so credit Coach Stoops on defense for playing great defense against Georgia's offense. But Carson Beck, 15-24, 160, and good old Travis 19 carries for 79 yards. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I think these players came out flat because 24 to 48 hours ago, reports were going out about another starter for crying out loud doing reckless driving.
106 miles an hour. That's ridiculous.
And
There's
to
no
me
need.
personally, I think that kind of does something on your body if you're a team like Georgia because every player, it seems, that's like a starter always gets pulled over for reckless driving now. And it definitely takes a toll on these players in general mentally also because they're like, okay, this guy let me down. Where I feel like I'm not going to give 100% this game because of it, per se. But yeah, 0 sacks for Kentucky again, but 3 sacks for Georgia. And Blake talked about this, Stoops not going for it like the way he did. I really thought, to be honest with you, that might have been the best thing to do because analytics say you get that 2 minute timeout, and whatnot. But Georgia's offense definitely has to get a little bit better going forward, especially when they still got to play at Texas and at Ole Miss. So Georgia's offense better be ready down the road if they want to keep on being that top spot because right now Texas definitely took over that number one spot in AP poll and they showed out yesterday against UTSA. So Georgia's offense better be ready to be going down to Oxford and then Austin the next couple of months and weeks.
Yeah, and when you look at Kentucky, man, I'm a fan of Vandergriff. I'm a fan
Mm-hmm.
of that kid. He's got moxie. He's got that gut factor. And I mean, to go and turn around and start for Kentucky, and then face a team in Georgia that you know really well, because don't forget he was there last year. Um,
Right.
what a showing for that young man. I thought Vandergriff played well, and I know Stoops is on the hot seat because he's now lost 2 games. But when you look at the way this Kentucky team responded after a loss, a blowout loss, mind you, to South Carolina, to turn around and respond to a Georgia team that, I mean, let's be honest. Georgia's offense is to John's point. Georgia's offense is not throwing blows and really just dominating teams like we've seen in years past, so far anyway. But
Mhm.
shout out Vandergrift, man. I and really I give credit to Kentucky to come out and play Georgia like they did, man. And then to Blake's point, there was some calls that had they gone other ways, we could be talking about Georgia possibly losing that game. I mean, obviously we're not, but um, yeah, man, that was a big game. And guys, there was great games all over the country in week 3. And if you look at week 4, there's just as many incredible football games. Just to give y'all a few, because I've got a list of freaking 12 games here. I think this is another. It's another road test week. When you look at this past week, obviously Memphis went down to Florida State. Alabama took a trip up to Wisconsin, dominated the Badgers up there. It's another road test week. Florida traveling to Mississippi State. Is this a get right game for either one of those teams? Will Mississippi State get back from theirs, and then can Florida do anything? University of Tennessee at Oklahoma. That's going to be a fun football game. Speaking of Tennessee, if I was a Kent State football coach, I believe I would have just walked straight off that field after the game. I wouldn't touch hands with nobody. You're up 30-0, and you kick an onside kick. Are you serious right now?
Hey, I get
Are
no
you
problem with
serious?
it.
Oh,
No,
and
man.
Also,
Up
also to
30,
add to
you don't
that,
do that. Go ahead.
First of
Blake.
all, you're practicing for future games. That's why I have no problem with it.
they Tennessee offered to play 10-minute quarters and after half, and they said no. They want to play the full 15-minute quarters. So
To that point,
yeah,
John. Right now, let me back up to the onside kick. Had they done the onside kick in the second half after Kent State was like,
yeah,
just kick our ass,
yeah.
that's different. But you're up 30-0 in the first quarter, and you run a beautifully ran onside kick, by the way. Um, I would have been pissed. I'm just saying.
Oh yeah.
I would have been
Oh,
livid on the other sideline.
for
And I
sure.
mean, at the same time, you're pissed anyway because you're getting drummed by 30 in the first quarter. That game is
Yeah,
over in the first quarter. Done.
yeah.
Finished. You might as well just crank the bus up, tell the bus driver to go get him some food and chill because we want the AC blowing in that bad boy when we get on it because we ain't. I would literally at halftime I would have told my team go straight to the daggum bus after the game. You don't even take your crap off. Just get on the bus. It was
65
bad.
is a lot.
It was
Golly, that's a
bad,
lot.
man. It was bad.
I
But
wonder why
hey,
Kent State, nothing against Kent State because they got a brand new coach. This was his only second year.
yeah,
But guys, this is pretty bad, especially the week before we lost to St. Francis. St.
yeah,
Francis. Come on, guys.
yeah.
Like, I also want to say this credit to a lot of players. I gotta give Hype a lot of credit in this as well because you don't see this very often. I mean, you do, but you don't see a lot of walk-ons play this in this type of game as well.
Yeah.
So credit Coach Heupel by playing Hunter Barnes, the walk-on from MUS at running back. Credit to the whole coaching staff for Tennessee for doing that for one thing. But like you brought up, Blake, I can see why you don't do that. But I think you just practice for future games why he might have done it. But
Yep.
before we go to week 4, what do y'all think about this? We talked about this last night by message. Ole Miss and Wake Forest. Wake Forest this week told, Ole Miss, we're not going to play y'all next year. We're just going to find another replacement. What kind of Bush League is that?
I mean, they've gotten smacked around by Ole Miss the last 2 years. I mean, completely slapped around by that football team the last
Right.
2 years. I mean, if you're Wake Forest, I don't see an issue with that. I mean, Ole Miss can easily go find a replacement for Wake Forest.
Oh, I know, but I'm talking
Promise.
about, yeah.
But
they
now, I mean,
might not have to with the 9-game schedule.
Hopefully that'll
that was
happen.
my next point. Is
Yeah.
you're about to see a lot of SEC teams
Mhm.
drop teams on their schedule. You're about to see a lot of teams drop teams.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
telling
why.
you right now. I'll pray. Yes, I'm telling you right now. It's gonna happen. And when it happens, you're gonna go roll the tape back because I said it a freaking year before it happened. Blake and I have been talking about this for weeks now. It's
Hey
going
Blake,
to happen.
give us more than $2 million, because y'all owe us a game from back to
I know.
'90s too. For
Oh, I
crying out
know.
loud.
We just
It's
I would love
but
for Memphis and Arkansas to play.
100%,
Love
100%.
but
In every sport, baseball
yeah.
included. I want
Hmm.
Memphis and Arkansas in baseball every year. I don't care if Arkansas beats the crap out of Memphis every year. I don't. I want that series. That's a fun series. It's a basically it's a regional series. 5 hours
Hmm.
away. That's about as regional as it gets.
Hmm.
Um,
I know Ed
but
Scott
John,
ain't. I know Scott ain't dumb enough, but let's just say that does happen where Arkansas is not happy because Memphis is still doing the renovations, at the stadium and whatnot. What do y'all see if Arkansas does buy this or takes the game off their schedule, whatever, and they do have the? I mean, let's just say they keep the 8 game schedule because Arkansas ain't happy because the renovations aren't finished done yet at the Liberty Bowl, which I hardly doubt. To be honest with you, this late in the game, I won't be surprised if they just keep this game because one, you get Ed Scott now as the athletic director, and then you get Hunter over at Arkansas. But the thing is, I'd say you just keep the 2 year deal still, and this or 3 year. Not well, you're gonna get rid of the third year probably down the road. I think anyway. I'd say we just keep it as a 2 game series, home and
that game's
home.
gonna be on the rock.
Yeah, the game will probably get canceled that third year anyway, because I think like y'all brought up, the 9 game schedule might not happen next year, but it's going to happen maybe 2 years from now as well. So that's why I think they can keep it on that schedule per se.
Yeah. Speaking of the Tigers, man, they're my game of the week. When you look at Memphis right now, I said this a couple weeks ago, John. I'm more worried about this week and going to Annapolis than I was Memphis traveling to Tallahassee. And I say that because of this. You get up a big game. It's an emotional game in Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got to immediately flip the script, get your mind right, and get ready for a Navy team that does a lot. I call them a dabba. They do a dab of this and a dab of that on offense. They'll line up. They do a lot, and they can beat you. And they're also coming off of a bye.
Mm-hmm.
This is the stretch that I talked about. 2 game stretch. Both teams came off a bye. Now we saw how Mike Norvell, which blew me away, to be honest with you, how crappy that team played off a bye. And I believe that's the first game he's ever lost coming off a bye. Or if it's not the first, it's not many. Um, but Memphis, you look at Ryan Silverfield, he's 34-18 since taking the position at Memphis. You look at Mike Norvell, he's 31-20 since taking the position at Florida State, just to give you both sides there. Not that anyone cares. But you look at Memphis, they got to get right. They got a big game at Navy. The last time they were up there, it was a very emotional game because we saw a lot of psychoness happening in Memphis with a serial shooter driving around town.
Yeah, I
So
forget about
big
that.
time game, man. You got to get ready for Navy. Big time football game. Blake, what's yours, man?
Mine is outside of the SEC because I know y'all get tired of SEC, but it is Utah at Oklahoma State. Number 12 versus number 14 matchup. Right now, Oklahoma State is a 3-point favorite, so should be a good game. Oklahoma State's got a 7-year guy quarterback, so they do have experience. That offensive line is experienced, but again, this is a huge Big 12 matchup.
No doubt, man.
Yeah,
I do.
especially in
I
the
feel like
place.
that guy's been there since Justin Blackman was there. I swear he's been there forever. John, what about
Hey,
you, man?
It's Mason Rudolph at quarterback. You just didn't know that. He's playing for the
Dude, I'm
Steelers.
telling you,
And
man, that guy's been there forever, man.
but
Um,
hey, let me say something about that Navy Memphis game because last
yeah,
year Memphis was up by like, what, 2 touchdown scores, and then Navy kind of rallied back.
yeah,
Then Navy had gotten stopped on that 4th and 1 as they were driving toward the end zone on that, and Memphis had like one stop to make it interesting down at Memphis last year as well. But first of all, if there's anybody listening, which I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that play for Navy football in general, thank you for everything that you do for our country as well. So even Air Force, I want to give them some credit as well, and even Army as well. But Navy, since you did bring up the Navy Memphis game, special credit to y'all as well because I know one thing we talked about this. It's not tough. It's a tough place to play at. It's gonna be televised on CBS College Sports, so we don't have to worry about. Good thing Direct TV and the Universe and all them got their ESPN back, but
Yeah.
CBS College Sports is televising it. But overall, like Blake brought up, Cam Riser, is he going to play? good question regarding that in Stillwater down the road. But yeah, there's some interesting games out there. Gosh, there's so many great ones. Who did I have before? Oh, Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham, and the company Sun Devils getting a good win over Texas State. That was a great game to watch too, guys. Over the San Marcos, Texas. I wouldn't mind
Yeah, it
Memphis
was.
playing at home and home with Texas State down the road because think about it. It's a Power Five game for both teams, and it could basically decide a playoff spot down the road. So yeah, Arizona State at Texas Tech. Arizona State's a 4 point dog right now. And right now, I'm picking Arizona State straight up if I was a betting man because the way that Kenny Dillingham's defense is storming around the football and playing hard. Yeah, they might have struggled in that first half against Texas State last week, but the way they competed in that game against Texas State and did on a short week just to be coming around that football. And then I love those the quarterback play right now in Arizona State too. But Texas Tech, they're not a passing team right now. They're also a running team because they are averaging over 200 yards a game running the football lately. But it could
Yeah,
be very well a shootout down in good old Lubbock, Texas this weekend.
no doubt, man. And some other games that I find very interesting. And speaking of Florida State, Cal's coming to town. And by the way, Cal's not a bad football team. They're averaging almost 200 yards through the air and over 200 yards per game on the ground. They just did that last week in their win at home. And another game that really interests me, and it's Arkansas at Auburn. I think when you look at Arkansas, you look at their offense. BMFP was struggling a little bit against the Blazers. They're not the Flames either. I saw a few people call them the Flames this weekend. If you're
Yeah,
gonna call,
it's,
just give them the
yeah,
right name, folks. It's Blazers.
yeah.
And of course, there's reports of issues between former players and the current administration, and
Oh wow!
you know, oh yeah, oh, but I mean,
I
there's
saw the
people that's
post. I
been
forgot about that.
there's
Yeah.
people that's been talking about it for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, look, folks, that happens everywhere. It's not.
Mhm.
Let's not make a huge deal out of nothing. Guess what? There's players that's played at Memphis that don't come back, or that aren't allowed to come back, or that don't get the access that they want. But and also, you've got to reach out to the administration. You've got to reach out to the athletic department and let them know, hey, I want to come to this game, this game, this game, this game. If you're an athletic department, you just can't have randos. I'm not saying a former player is not a rando, but you just can't have thousands of people on the sidelines if you don't know who they are, if they don't have the proper credentials to be there.
Mhm.
So this whole there's so much dissension. Guess what, folks? Another thing, it's not Sam Pittman's fault. So I don't want to hear that crap. It's not Pittman's fault. That's an athletic department. Get on Yurichek. You want to get on somebody, go after Yurichek. He's over the athletic department. But I think that's a big, big game this week, man. I think if you're Arkansas, it's a very winnable football game. Very winnable
Yep.
football game. And let's be honest, at the beginning of the season, not a lot of people had that game as a winnable game.
Yep.
But let's look at Auburn.
Mhm.
Auburn's struggling right now. That's another coach that I think his seat is getting a little warm on the plains. I don't know if anybody's really just talked about it, but I think Hugh Freeze is probably a little bit nervous now. Somebody said they need to get out a burner phone and make some calls. That's really funny, but um, you know, uh, I mean, that's really really funny. But it is what it is, man. But this whole let's freak out because a player wasn't allowed back or whatever the story was. Do we really know the story? Are we the
Yeah,
player?
it
Are we
was a
the people he
Facebook
talked
post.
to? Exactly. Exactly. It's a
Mhm.
Facebook post. Were we there?
Mhm.
No.
Yeah.
So why freak out about it? It's a Facebook post that, for all we know, could have been complete BS. But let's yeah.
What game in particular this past weekend?
Yeah, exactly. But man, no, big time week this week, man. Big time week. Really looking forward to it. We'll be back on tomorrow morning, 8:30 to 9:30. Talking a little. We'll get into it. We'll get all the way into it tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit of live golf. We're going to talk a little bit of WWE. Yes, folks, we are going to talk
Mm.
wrestling. Um, we're going to talk a little NFL and we'll talk a little college sports as well tomorrow on the Sports Buffet, where
Hey,
you
hey,
come, you sit
before
down, and you get full.
that's like before we leave, I'm gonna leave you with the stat that you might use tomorrow. All right, game day locations
Mm.
are 0 for 3, like the host sites. So they went to Texas A&M, they lost. They went to I'm trying to think who they went to second week. Michigan, they lost, and then they went to South Carolina, they lost, and this week they're going to Oklahoma, who are facing Tennessee. So it might be 0 for 4 for it's like a curse, like the Madden curse.
That game's
Hey,
just
I mean, that's
a
a
shootout.
that's a trend. That's a trend right there, folks. For anybody, that's a better. That's a trend. That's something you start paying attention to. But no, man, I appreciate you two guys coming on tonight. I appreciate everybody watching
And
and
two
listening as
questions for
always.
you guys real quick too.
All right,
Yeah,
all
go
right.
ahead.
All right. After yesterday's Memphis game, what is Memphis' all-time record in college football?
They're now 500 as a program.
Dang it.
All right.
I don't know the
Yeah.
exact record, but I do know they're 500.
536, 536, and 33.
Yep. I knew that game that was on the, with a win, Memphis would become
Yeah.
whatever. I figured I did a little research on that one.
Sunday Night
But
Michigan game is another interesting game, by the way, fellas.
it
Don't
is.
forget-
It is as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Miami at South Florida is too. I think that's gonna be a fun game. But all that and more, man. This week, right here on 4 Star Sports Media, Blake Hogue and over here. Blake Hogue and the boys will be back on Thursday night talking all things
Yeah.
Arkansas Razorbacks because that's what we do on Thursday nights. And on Wednesdays, you know you know what Wednesday is, right? It's Tigers. We talk Tigers on Wednesdays. So we'll be inside, not inside the Tigers den. We will be sitting out of the Tigers den and getting all in it, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But for Blake Hogue, John Sturdivant, all of us here at 4 Star Sports Media, I am Wes Pruitt. We appreciate everybody watching and listening tonight. And fellas, have a good evening.